night, fueling the passion, igniting the light. Through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. Our legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together we roar, together we roar. Detroit Lions will rise, with a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. So let's lift our voices, let's turn it up loud. For the love of the Lions, we'll always be proud.
All right. Good morning. It's the Rise and Grind Morning Show. How's everybody doing today? I'm your host, Will Rock. It is October 23rd, 8:04 a.m. If I could talk, that would help. Big news today. Big news today. Couple of things. And today's just going to be a headline kind of a story today. We're just going to be discussing a few headlines, and then I've got a boogie on with life today. Life throws curveballs, and sometimes you got to be able to swing and get after it. So that's what I've got to do today. But the biggest news of the day, I feel, is what Maxx Crosby said, and I think it was yesterday. So I want to get into that. He definitely spoke up about the trade rumors with Detroit, and then also what just happened, I don't know, in the last 25 minutes or so ahead of the Titans game. The Titans just traded away their biggest star, making this game potentially a little bit easier for the Lions. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll get into all the rest of the news, highlights, and whatever else we can find on the old interwebs this morning. It's going to be that kind of a show today. We'll be right back after an ad from one of our sponsors.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights, with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs, with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby finally spoke up about all of this. Now, he's spoken up a little bit over the last week and a half or so, but this is a definitive Maxx Crosby has an answer for Lions fans. And I've been standing on top of this and telling you guys it wasn't going to happen. It's not happening. It's not unless Davis decides to go ahead and trade the guy. It's not happening. Maxx Crosby is going to stay a Raider as long as he has any sort of control over that, which he really doesn't. He's going to stay a Raider. And here's what went down. So Athlon Sports and among others have reported this, and this was last night about 8:15-ish p.m., that dating back to last season, the three-time All-Pro, let me back up. Dating back to last season, so the Las Vegas Raiders fans, coaches, and even players may have thought that they could take a collective breath after trading Davante Adams away, simply due to how much of a distraction it had become for the team. But there are still ongoing trade rumors, more distractions. Now, dating back to last season, the three-time All-Pro wide receiver who they traded for, before the 22 season had begun, Davante Adams, had been at the center of trade talks once again. And his outburst on Netflix's Receiver didn't help ease the talks, and then the team's slow start to the year this season appeared to be the cherry on top of that saga. Now, Adams was obviously traded to the Jets, where he's linked back up with Aaron Rodgers. Clearly, that didn't help much, did it? But now the Raiders have to deal with more rumors surrounding their number one defensive player, Maxx Crosby. Now, Crosby addressed the speculation finally on Tuesday's episode of the Rush podcast, expressing that he's had to shut down rumors about him to the Detroit Lions to his own teammates. Here's the first quote. Now, it's like they've started a whole pandemonium, a whole movement, like a revolution, Crosby said, of Detroit fans sparking trade rumors. I'm sitting here innocently doing what I do. I got to address it with my teammates. End quote. New quote. I'm not trying to leave, Crosby said. I know it's an effing business. I don't have 100% control of all that. I want to be here, Las Vegas. I want to be silver and black. I'll say it loud and effing clear. I want to be a Raider. I've said that over and over and over again. But yeah, it's a business. It's a business part of it too. I don't have 100% control of that, but I know at the end of the day, just seeing all the craziness, it's been effing insane. Sucks for Lions fans that wanted to have Maxx Crosby. And yeah, of course, the Lions need to do something. But if this remains true, that Max doesn't want to come to Detroit, and Davis, who I mentioned yesterday, said that there was no trade happening. It was just all rumors. We can cross that one off the list for right now, right? It doesn't mean that, other channels aren't going to talk about Myles Garrett or, any other player that, pops up. I mean, they've been doing the same thing for 2 years, talking about edge rushers. We just don't get. And I don't understand what people don't get. It's Brad Holmes is not going to put us in this bad of a situation where we mortgage our future. I think that if we were to do something like that, it would be a catastrophe. Especially if it doesn't work out. If we were to bring in, let me ask you guys this. If we were to bring in a $25 million defensive end, knowing that Aiden Hutchinson's going to get a bag as long as he can come back and play the way that he used to be able to play, and we don't win a Super Bowl this year, then what? Was it a big giant waste? What if we don't win a Super Bowl next year? Even bigger waste. You just gave up 2 first-round draft picks, potentially. No ring. Because that could be the real issue here. That's what we would be facing. It's either you're all in for the ring or you're not, right? But let me ask you another question. Everyone's been saying we need somebody opposite of Hutch. We need someone opposite of Hutch. We need a second pass rusher that can get sacks. You just heard Lomas Brown say the other day that sacks are not the biggest part of this. You've heard Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell also say the same thing. Pressure is what they would rather see. But sacks are not the end-all, be-all to winning football games. But if we don't have Hutch, we're adding somebody on the other side of who then? You're going to be right back into the same situation. If you wanted to add somebody on the other side of Hutch, but we don't have Hutch, aren't we right back in the same pickle? So how much sense does it really make? And I'm glad that Crosby finally came out and said something. Now, it could all be smoke, right? It could all just be, him trying to make nice with his teammates. But at the end of the day, I just don't see where Brad Holmes goes to this, level of a giant reach to try to fix, what you could call holes on the team because we've lost so many good players. I'd say stick with what works, man. We're so close to getting Broderick Martin back, and interior pressure was working just fine. Making AG kind of get out of his comfort zone, right? He doesn't have Hutchinson anymore, so this is going to be the true mark of a defensive genius or not, right? How good of a defensive coordinator is Aaron Glenn? This is either going to take him from, where some fans have claimed that he should have been fired over the last couple of years to, man, they better love this dude, because this is going to take him from not having his constant, which is Aiden Hutchinson, not having that security blanket, which is Aiden Hutchinson, So now he's totally uncomfortable, and he has to really dip deep into that bag and find, a way to create pressure and get after the quarterback and maintain, the defense for what we have for the rest of the season. And in week 1 versus the Minnesota Vikings, without Aiden Hutchinson, he did a damn good job. Really good job. So this is a true test for Aaron Glenn and this Lions defense and how deep we are. We've got some players. We definitely have some players. Yep, I feel the same way as you do. I would love to have a top tier defensive end, at least one of them. I wish it was Aiden. Every team needs one, but I wouldn't say that we need 2 or 3. You can't afford it. Over time, it doesn't make sense. You start to squeeze, the bottom end of your roster or even the middle part of your roster for good guys that you need to keep. All right, who do we have in the chat this morning? We got Tarantino's in the house. We got Mike P. Broski Bear. Good morning. Appreciate the compliment there, Broski. Says, good morning, Will. Just want to say you have one of the best football podcasts and any team. Keep up the great work. You keep showing up, Broski. Now I'll keep doing it. How's that? Appreciate it, buddy. Mike P., good morning. Flex your mind. He says, this is why I was looking at Trey Hendrickson. He is not that expensive, wouldn't cost you a ton of draft capital, and he produces good numbers. We'll pull open Trey Hendrickson this morning. We'll take a look at it live and see what we're looking at. This is going to be a short. I know I say that all the time, right? It's going to be a short show and blah 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 because I didn't prep. Truly did not prep. A lot going on yesterday. Those of you that know, I'm not going to make it public. But just a lot going on, and I'll turn off ads right away. Of course, I'd love to see at least 50 likes. Get on this show real quick, but I wasn't even going to do this show today because I got too much going on. And tomorrow I will be in Cleveland. So Chef said that he was going to fill in tomorrow. I've got to get him some assets today to be able to do the show, and it might start at 7:30. It might start at 7:30 so that he can get a good 90 minutes in. Otherwise, it's going to be like 8 to 9 a.m. our time here. Be a solid hour. So Chef will be filling in tomorrow. We'll see if we can. I don't know if Eric's going to be up and around yet. I might be able to find another guest to come on the show with him, or he'll just roll solo. But be prepared for that tomorrow. We'll get it all scheduled tonight. So, look, I'm sorry. If you wanted Maxx Crosby, everything is pointing to it ain't happening. Okay? And I would say that the next best thing, or the next biggest star, in my opinion, the best defensive end in this league, Myles Garrett, yeah, that's a pipe dream too. Let's start with Myles, and then I'm going to come back to Trey Hendrickson. So Myles Garrett right now is under contract through 2026. So this is a very similar situation to Crosby, right? Huge contract. He's under contract for the next 2.5 seasons. The Lions would have to absorb all of that. And, all of the, prorations and all the void years, all that stuff would hit the Browns cap right away. What are we talking for numbers? Well, if I understand the way that these contracts work, all of the option proration would hit their cap number today. So you're talking 24, 36, 40, about 45 million in prorated that would hit the Browns cap today if they were to trade him. All right. Now they've also got another issue, right? Deshaun Watson. And, what are they going to do with him? There's really not much they can do. But if Myles Garrett was to be traded post June 1, yeah, they only have 45 million in cap right now. In next year, they're already over the cap by 4.5 million. I don't see how the Browns would be able to move Myles Garrett without taking some sort of a very huge penalty. I mean, they'd have to do a lot of work. Their entire roster would just be decimated. The one that does make sense is Zadarius Smith. So Myles Garrett, for face value of what it is, yeah, he's an exceptional player. He's been the most consistent defensive end in the league since he's been in the league. He's been my favorite defensive end, and I'm not saying anything against Aiden, but just from watching a pure athlete go to work and produce at such a high level, year in and year out, week in and week out, man, I wish Aiden would go train with Myles. Maybe he will. Maybe he has. I don't know. But Myles is he's the guy to emulate, in my opinion. You guys may have other opinions. That's okay. I welcome all opinions. And I just think it's too much of a risk for the Browns to try to move off of that contract. I mean, it's going to hurt them big time. Roger, last I knew, Eric's doing really good. He's been at home. I mean, he's been active on social media, so he's got to be doing okay. Zachary Cleary, what's your opinion on Josh Uche of the New England Patriots? So Uche was on my radar last year, or this last offseason. I don't know much about what he's done this season. Let me make a note here. We'll keep rolling with options today. So I'll add Uche. Then we got Trey. So again, Myles Garrett, my favorite defensive end, way too expensive. And I don't think it can make fiscal sense for the Browns. I mean, I know that you can do a lot of things with these salary caps, and you can try to work as best you can to get underneath the cap number. But if again, just taking it on its face here, I see $45 million in options that would hit from 2027 to 2030 that are all involved in those prorated years. And then he's got all that guaranteed money that also hits in all of those years. So I'm really not sure how much is left on his deal. So the potential out for the Browns says in 2024, he'll have a 4-year, $79.8 million contract with $56 million guaranteed. So if they were to trade him, the Lions would be bringing in an average salary per year of $20 million and another $56 million guaranteed. If I understand it, that's what the Lions would be bringing in. $20 million a year, $56 million guaranteed. Now, they could probably rework the contract to make it fit the Lions dynamic and what they need, for their fiscal, or financial setup and what the Lions have already put into play here with their extensions and, how they manage the cap. Maybe Myles Garrett would be able to rework his contract a little bit. He probably wouldn't take any less of money because if he just got, canned by the Browns, he's going to get all that money. So they would have to do some sort of a rework on the contract. Let's look at his age. How old is Garrett? He's 28. That's not terrible. He's probably right in the prime of his career right now. He'll be 29 here in about 2 months. He'll be 29 before the season's up. But he's probably right in the tail end of the prime of his career. Does he have a few good years left? Probably. I wouldn't see why not. And injury history. I don't remember any injuries for the guy. Got to look it up. Oh, he's had a few. But he is also rated a 5 on the durability scale. So that means that he is the most durable. He's had pedal foot sprain, pedal ankle sprain, high ankle sprain, grade 3, concussion, a knee strain, a shoulder AC joint sprain, an arm bicep strain, and then a couple more pedal toes and pedal foot bruise and dislocation. So typical stuff, typical stuff that happens to any NFL player. Nothing major. other than the high grade, 3 high ankle sprain, which, that's 6 to 8, week process. So I would say Myles Garrett, if we were to rank these guys, 1 to 5, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst, opportunity to make the Lions roster, I would say that Myles Garrett's probably a 4.5. I'm not going to put him at the dead last, but I think because of the contract and the way it's laid out and how much the Lions would have to absorb and then what would happen to the Browns on the back end, that's a very difficult trade to pull off. I'm not saying that it can't be done, but I think you're going to have multiple players, getting moved here. The Browns would have to be, very fluid in what they're doing because they're in trouble already. Let's look up Trey Hendrickson. Oh, before I do that, I'm sorry. The big news out of this morning, NFL news. So, Hopkins. The Titans just traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. So that means this weekend we have no DeAndre Hopkins to worry about. So the Titans and Chiefs are working to finalize a trade that would send wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins to Kansas City. League sources told Adam Schefter this morning the Titans would receive a conditional 4th-round pick in a trade that is expected to be completed by Wednesday. The Chiefs had a need at wide receiver since Rashee Rice suffered a knee injury. And the team also lost Marquise Brown to a shoulder injury in preseason. And Juju Smith-Schuster just suffered a hamstring injury last week. The one thing I will say about the Chiefs is that is a team that is not afraid to go do what they have to do. But I think it also tells you that they're not as deep in their roster. They play at the top of the roster. They've got their core athletes, their core players, but I don't know if they're as deep of a team as some of the rest of the teams out there, especially like the Lions. We're going to lose Jameson Williams. At least the last I heard, Jameson Williams is done for 2 games. There was some conversation yesterday that the league had till 4:30 to suspend him. Otherwise, he would not be suspended for this weekend. And a little birdie told me this is not validated. This is a total rumor, which I don't like to do a lot of rumors, that he was being suspended for a legal substance that he didn't turn paperwork in on. So something prescribed that he didn't turn paperwork in on. That was what someone had advised me of yesterday. I don't know if any of that has been reported yet. I haven't seen anything yet. And if that's the case, not to switch subjects here, but assuming that's the case, I would be firing my personal assistant. I would be firing my agent. I would be extremely pissed off at myself that I didn't file a piece of paperwork. But at what point can some of this stuff be eliminated? Like, if you're going to test positive for something, you should have the opportunity to say, oh, yeah, here's my doctor's, slip or note or whatever. If it's a substance that is not banned, as long as it accompanies a doctor's note, then you shouldn't be suspended if you drop dirty for it and you're able to produce the paperwork immediately. Right? I mean, doesn't that make sense? If you wouldn't have been suspended, as long as you furnished a piece of paper, then you shouldn't be suspended if you furnished a piece of paper right then and there. Now, I know it defeats the whole purpose of making these guys responsible to take care of their life. But that brings me to another point. Why are these guys seeing doctors outside of team doctors? Maybe each NFL team needs to have a set of team doctors, which I'm sure they do, that cover all bases. Doesn't mean that the team has to know everything that's HIPAA protected, but that way everything kind of stays in-house. You go to this doctor for this issue, you get seen, and then the paperwork is handled correctly and everything's, handled the right way, or the team handles it the right way, or whatever. And I know that's an out that doesn't make you personally responsible. Then things are just kind of getting handled for you, but it's just an idea. Handle this stuff in-house, man. Have somebody that is attached to these players that, is asking them the questions. Hey, are you on anything? Have you turned in the paperwork? I don't need to know what it is. Go turn in the paperwork. There's got to be a check and a balance system. But here's what I'll say to end that on Jamison Williams. Nobody else on this team is getting suspended. And I don't see a lot of other players in the NFL getting suspended for this same issue. This is a complete maturity issue. He's just not organized, whatever the case may be. If that is the case, now I'm speculating here. This is alleged rumor that it was something that was a legal substance that he just didn't turn in paperwork for. If that is the case, there's a lot of people that need to step up here to say, man, we all screwed up. That shouldn't happen. And to finish this, like I said a minute ago, if that is truly the case, he should be able to furnish the paperwork right then and there. So, yeah. And the only reason why I bring that up, I mean, I've had to take tests before, whether it's for work or for whatever, right? You have to take drug tests. And they tell you if you're on anything, if anything, pops up, you're on a controlled substance or whatever, there's ADHD medications and all sorts of other medications out there that might pop up in a test. That's where I learned that from. They just said, oh, just furnish the paperwork. If it comes back in your urine or whatever, just get us the paperwork. You're good to go. That's where that idea comes from. So it's something that's utilized quite a bit already. I don't know, Trace, if they have like mental health doctors on staff. I have no idea. But I think that would be highly beneficial. Have you ever watched the show? Have you ever watched the show Billions? Yeah, I think it's called Billions, not Billionaire. Billions. Bo Booth, illegal is not the same as controlled. Yeah, that's totally different. There's a difference between a controlled substance that is not banned per se by the NFL. They may be banned if you don't have paperwork, right? It's on the PES list, but if it's a controlled, substance on the PES list, that if it's accompanied by a doctor slip, then it's not banned for that player. Does that make sense? There was a whole host of things that I was reading. There was like testosterone replacement therapy treatment or treatments for infertility, that would obviously, those types of treatments, can give you an edge, whether you're taking testosterone or you're taking certain medications to make things function a little bit better. There's a very fine line between using that stuff for a certain purpose and then using it to get an edge. Even certain asthma medications are on this list. But again, if it's accompanied by a doctor, note saying that this is what you're taking it for, and there's a history, that you've been taking it for it, then obviously there's a way out. Still all has to be approved by the NFL. But if you ever watched the show Billions, they had, like a mental health doctor that psychologist, it was, would talk to, all of the analysts and, all the stock traders. And I mean, it's just a show, but it's a good idea, right? That you have somebody in-house that you can just go to. It's kind of like a coach. It's a life coach, psychologist. Someone that gets you going in the right direction, reframes your mind, makes you feel better about yourself. And then you go and you have a great day selling stock or buying stock or whatever you're doing. So yeah, I think it's a good idea. I really do. I think having a lot of doctors in-house would be a great idea. And I'm sure they already have a ton anyway, to be honest with you. Michael Rosine says, this is getting way too complicated for recreational support of a sport. Oh, to be a kid again, where you don't have to be dissected this much all week. I know, isn't it crazy? It's crazy. It is nuts, right? Like Arpazzo says, it's nuts nowadays. I just, yeah, sometimes I feel like there's just too much medication out there. Like a little bit of, sun and water and air, fresh air and getting outside, man, that could do your body a whole lot of good. Just saying. All right, so DeAndre Hopkins traded from the Titans. Lions' job just got a little easier this weekend. I'm still not going to take these Titans lightly, but we'll talk about that here at the tail end of the show. I want to talk a little bit about the Titans. We'll get more into that on Friday. All right, Trey Hendrickson. Promised we would talk about him, and I forgot who brought him up this morning, but I think the statement was he's not as expensive. Let's just take a look here. And I think Trey Hendrickson, makes a little bit of sense from the standpoint that he and DJ Reader, working alongside each other, played very well. I mean, their stats were incredible together. Here's the deal with Trey Hendrickson. So he's under contract only through 2025. And he has zero guaranteed salary right now on his contract. So that is a good, that is a good thing in a trade where the Lions can jump out at any moment and not have a bunch of guaranteed salary. His cap hit for this year is 20.16 and next year 18.67. So it's not terrible. I mean, it's still in the realm of, a Myles Garrett was right around 20 million average. Crosby was right around 24 million per year average. So he is a little bit cheaper. He's 10, 12, 15% cheaper. It's still a big contract, but the nice part about this contract is that it's only for the next 2 seasons, this season and next season. That's it. You've got a total cap number of 54 million. You have zero guaranteed salary left on the deal. I do think it makes a lot of sense. But what are you willing to give up for him? That's the biggest question. What are you willing to give up for Trey Hendrickson? And are you willing to give up, the Lions' future? Because that's what we're going to give up. Right now, I see the Lions taking a defensive end in the first or second round next year. 1,000%. I see Houston. Houston is not, I'll be honest, Houston is not worth anything. So what was he, a 6th round draft pick? And he had a half a season of stellar play as a rookie and hasn't done anything since. And he had a major injury. So if you were to get a future 7th or you'd probably get a conditional 7th for Houston at best. And that's about as low of a trade, option that you're going to get on Houston. And I'm sticking firm to that. Now a good GM, a good agent might be able to sell you a little bit more. Hey, just go back and look what he did when he was healthy. Yeah, they might be able to sell him a pipe dream. But I'll be honest, a conditional 7th for Houston, I think, is about as much as you're going to get. And as far as Trey Hendrickson, what he's worth, is he worth a 1st round pick? How many of you think he's worth a 1st round pick? He had 17.5 sacks in 2023. He had 8 sacks in 2022, 14 in 2021, 13.5 in 2020. 4.5 in 2019. He's already got 7 sacks in for 2024. And I don't think they've had a bye week yet, right? So he's averaging a sack per game. So he's on his way to 17 sacks this year. Nope, just more breaking news on the Chiefs. So, I don't know. Is he worth a 1st? I don't think that they're going to want Houston. I really don't. I don't think that a whole lot of people would want Houston right now. And I don't know that you'd want to give up Houston. I still think that you're going to want to have some depth. Because if we get into another situation where another player gets injured, we're right back into needing another player. And where are you going to get another player from if the trade deadline is closed? You're going to have to get him off the couch. And is there another player sitting on a couch right now that is better than James Houston? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. And I would say that the answer is probably no, other than J.J. Watt. But I think that the writing is kind of on the wall there. You know, the whole speculation for him is that he would come back and play for the Texans. He's staying in shape. To be able to get him to come and play for the Lions, I think is really going to be tough. Probably slim to none chances. Isaiah Thomas that we brought in. I wouldn't say that he's the new Houston, if you mean by production wise. Oh, Bruce Irvin. Bruce Irvin. He's probably still available, but I would say that ship has sailed too. Isaiah Thomas has a great opportunity to be good. I think that, you know, the more that he is involved with Terrell Williams in this defense, the better he's going to get quickly. Yeah, I don't think so. MIB reviews. If you are worried about draft picks at this point, when we were one or two missing pieces from winning a Super Bowl, that would be the most Lions thing ever. No, I don't think so. I think the most Lions thing ever would be, hey, yep, let's bring in Trey Flowers. Yep, let's bring in, you know, all these high-priced players that are marginal at best, give up a bunch of draft capital, completely ruin our cap, and put ourselves in cap purgatory, and then have all of this dead cap when it doesn't work out, and then we don't have any draft picks for a decade, because that's what happened. You know, I don't want to see 2000, you know, what was it, 12, 13, 14 happen all over again, where you've got, you know, the biggest contract to Ndamukong Suh, Matthew Stafford, Nick Fairley got a bag. I mean, you signed all these players. You had like 3 players making 50+% of your cap. And then you bring in all these high-priced free agents that didn't do anything during the Quinn era, you know, Quinn and Tricia era. And we were left with dead cap for 4 years almost. Well, I think it was 3 seasons after they left. And we gave up a bunch of draft capital. So if you haven't noticed, the reason why this team is so good is because Brad Holmes drafts really well. That's why this team is so good. We don't have any outsiders playing on this team right now other than DJ Reader that hasn't been handpicked by Brad Holmes. Carlton Davis, and Amik Robertson are probably the only 3. But everybody else is all handpicked. They're all draft picks. And they're all playing at a very high level. So I would be careful about, you know, mortgaging away your future and not having those draft picks, because you're losing out on a couple of things. One, you're losing out on a low contract. The rookie contract is the best contract to have. Number one. Number two, you're missing out on a 5th-year option with a first-round pick. And then number 3, you're missing out on a very high probability that player is going to be pretty good, especially in the first or second round with Brad Holmes. If you're saying we're 1 or 2 pieces away from winning a Super Bowl, right now you have to look at this point too. All of our players that we feel are going to help us win a Super Bowl, they're all locked up to like 2027, 2028. So if we're 1 or 2 pieces away, like you're saying, which I don't think any team is ever 1 piece away, then next year's draft pick is still going to be around when these guys are all signed. Now, DJ Reader is only signed through next season. So we're going to have to replace him with a draft pick. Aren't you going to want to get a defensive tackle in the first round? If you could potentially get the best one? Or a defensive end? Wouldn't you want another first round defensive end pick? See, that's how you balance, you know, you balance the contracts. You pay Hutchinson, bring in a rookie. You know, now you're back to balance. But if you pay Hutchinson and then bring in a defensive end in free agency, you're way out of balance. Nothing makes any sense there. But I would say that we are maybe 1 or 2 draft picks away. And then we have to think about the next 10 years. I mean, do you want to just win 1 Super Bowl and then have to delete the whole team? Because that's what many other teams do. If you look around the league, outside of, well, I think Kansas City's done a fairly decent job. But if you look around at a lot of the Super Bowl winners, what happens to their team the next year? It's mass exodus. And why is that? Because all of those players were on one-year deals or expiring contracts, but mostly one-year deals. You brought in these guys, off of free agency. You sold them a pipe dream that, hey, we're going to go win a Super Bowl. You won it. And now their value goes way up because they just won a Super Bowl and they all leave for the biggest contract that they can get. They don't care where they're going to play because they got their ring. All they wanted was one. They didn't care about sticking around and creating a dynasty and going and winning 2 or 3 or 4 rings. Brad Holmes, I get the feeling that he wants to create a legacy in Detroit. But more importantly, he always uses that word sustainability. He's trying to create sustainability. Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and the rest of the guys that were just extended, I think 2028 is the year that they're all here through. I think the goal will be to win at least one by that time. And if they don't, they're probably going to be gone. The whole team is going to have to be rebuilt all over again because that's what's going to happen. Contracts are going to expire. The guys are going to be a little bit old, for NFL purposes, and they're going to have to move on. Solo 310. Are we playing for next season? What happens if Ben Johnson leaves? I mean, we're expecting that to happen, right? I think that we're expecting that to happen. Hold on a second here. I don't know who MIB Reviews is, but yeah, I don't need you around, dude. It's all good. No shame on my end. I've always stood firm. And you know what? You can go check my receipts too if you're still listening. I'm probably the only channel that's picked as much as I've picked right. And I do that because I put the time in. But I'm not going to sit here and toot my horn every single day of all the things that I get right. I expect you guys to call me out when I get things wrong and when I get things right. But the receipts are there for a reason. We work hard to try to get things right. It's really hard to get things right in this industry because things change. The landscape changes so fast. Then players have to hold up their end of the bargain. And I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this whole topic, right? Of are we building for now? Are you building for next year? Are you building for 10 years? How does it make sense with the draft picks that you have currently for the next couple of seasons, which Lions already don't have a 3rd round pick next year? I think they have 2 7ths and then they have 1 in every round. And then in 2026, we have every draft pick. And yeah, I would expect that Brad Holmes is going to make do with what he has. And I expect that he's going to make moves in the draft to move up to find the players that he wants. What's going to happen with this roster is we're not going to be able to keep every draft pick. So I would expect the 6th and the 7th round and even some of the 5th round picks, they'll probably be combined. They'll be packaged up. Brad will move into the 3rd round. He may move into the back end of the 2nd round with a lot of picks and get players that he knows can help this football team. We may only need 4 draft picks out of the next 2 drafts. But if you don't have your 1st and 2nd round draft pick, well, now you do have to count on those bottom feeders. And I don't mean to call them bottom feeders like negatively, but the bottom end of the draft. You know what I mean? So you would need those 5th and 6th and 7th round draft picks if you don't have a 1st or a 2nd. And I don't think that's a good trade-off. Personally, you guys can have your own opinion. And look, it is what it is. I think that what we've seen so far has been working. I mean, we're into our 4th season. And we're talking about Super Bowl last year. So I think that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and Sheila, I think their plan is well defined to do things a very certain way to keep this team, one, together, to keep the players that matter the most, meaning, the players that are here to lead this team together. Our leaders are here. They're well defined. Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff, Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker. I mean, these guys are the core of this team, the nucleus of this team, and others, right? BB is going to be one of those guys. I mean, Kirby Joseph is turning out to be a really good safety, but BB, like I've said before, he may be the best draft pick that Brad ever took. He might end up being the best safety to ever play the game at some point. If he continues to play the way he's playing and stays healthy, that is why you need draft picks. We wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are right now had Brad Holmes just brought in a bunch of free agents. High price contracts, more than rookie deals, I can tell you that. Shorter than rookie deals. And you just don't know what you're going to get because that player's already been given a bunch of bad habits from other coaches that maybe you don't want that player to have. And trying to unwind all of that big ball of mess, and then try to teach them something new. You guys know the term. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's really tough to do in the NFL too. You can't teach an old defensive end new tricks. Like they got what they got. They are who they are because they've been training the same way for the same people, the same coaches for the last 4 seasons, and now you're getting them in their 5th year. Really hard to recoach them and retrain them on body mechanics, positioning, muscle memory. Like they just built 4 years worth of muscle memory. And I know I'm going way deep right now, but that all applies to what you do at the very beginning. And they have a core principle here of trying to build us a team that is there for the future. Now, with all that said, I do agree we need somebody right now. And I appreciate you guys. I really do. I appreciate you guys, whether you believe in what I'm saying or you don't. Either way, I appreciate it. At the end of the day, so Flex Your Mind says, this is the best team we've had in my life by far. Yeah, 1,000%. So Flex Your Mind, let me ask you a question. Do you think that we would have been here had we not, had the draft picks and Brad Holmes just went out and said, you know what, I'm going to trade all of these picks away for free agents instead of drafting in the draft? I mean, that wouldn't happen, right? But let's just say it did. Let's just say he said, you know what, I just want my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick every year. I'm going to trade everything else away, and I'm going to bring in this player, and I'm going to bring in that player. Would we be here right now? And would we be sustainable? And I'm sure if I spent the time and went and researched what teams have done that, I could come up with some very valuable points as to why it didn't work for them. The Bears come to mind. Now, they've had a fairly easy schedule, in my opinion. They're starting to put some things together, but that's all they have done usually is go out and draft, or trade for free agents. Trade deadline, off season, they go out and get all these high priced free agents. How long is that team going to be able to stay together? If they don't win something between this year and next year, they start all over again. Whereas the Lions can go 4 or 5 years without having to do anything because they got their guys locked up and they're just supplementing. They're just adding to it, right? They're just adding more cherries on top every single year. Brad Holmes is plucking those diamonds every single year. Over 90% of his draft picks have worked and started in year 1. The ones that haven't either came into the league injured, which is a couple of them, or had some sort of an injury, that prevented them from playing. Cleveland traded for a quarterback. Yeah, Cleveland. I mean, what a mess, right? I don't know how you screw up. I don't know how you screw up Cleveland so bad. Like, how do you screw that up? You give him a fully guaranteed contract, the biggest ever in NFL history, and it hasn't worked out. Now, all the negative stuff aside, it still hasn't worked out. If he would have never gotten in any trouble, it still hasn't worked out. And that team, I mean, just you go look, they're upside down next year, $5 million in cap space. Now, yes, they'll get a bump, from the NFL, probably 25 million or whatever next year. So they'll have positive 20 million, but that means they're barely going to be able to sign their rookie draft class. And I don't even know what they have for draft picks, to be honest with you. Yeah, Browns have the coach of the year. So, all right. What else you guys want to talk about? Flex your mind, Gibbs, Hutch, BB, they're all going to need money soon. Yes, exactly. So if we bring in a bunch of high-priced players, how are we going to pay those guys? So Gibbs, being a first-round pick, he'll be due for an extension after next year. So he'll be a 2026 guy. BB's probably going to get an extension. I would dare say that he might get extended next year. Now, next year would be his third season. But I don't think that you can ignore. I don't think that you can ignore what he's doing. You can't. You really just can't. He's playing at such an elite level. Trying to pull up his contract real quick because I know it's not crazy. Yeah, so he's making like $8 million all in. So drafted in 2023, right? This is his second season, so he'll be able to get a contract after next year. So he'll be a 2026 guy. Now, I think the team could do something early, but then again, I think that there's definitive rules that you have to get through the first 3 seasons before you can demand or ask for or even put together an extension. So there might be, and I don't know, someone smarter than me can tell me in the comments if you can do a contract earlier than the first 3 seasons. I know I read where first round picks can't get an extension or any changes to their contract until after year 3 is concluded. I think some players have asked early and made a stink about it, and they may have done something, but I think that Bryant Branch deserves an extension soon so that we can get him locked up before, the rest of those contracts get crazy. Brian Branch, the highest rated defensive player at this point. He's one of the highest rated defensive players in the league. Let's take a look here at PFF. But before I do, let's finish Trey Hendrickson. Now that just popped up in front of me again, I want to make sure I finish this. I asked the question, how much is he worth? Right? Is he worth a first round pick, a second round pick, a third round pick? What is he worth? We don't have a third in 2025. So that means we would have to give up at least a second for Trey Hendrickson. And I guarantee you the Bengals want a first. Guaranteed they want a first round draft pick. Now, he is a player that is still fairly young, right? Is he way over 30 yet? Yeah, he's 30 right now. So you might be able to squeeze out another 2, 3, 4 years out of him, playing at a high level. It doesn't look like he's slowing down, but I think the fact that he's 30, I would say the Lions are probably not willing to give up a first-round draft pick for a guy that's 30 years old that you could have for 2 seasons, this year and next year, and that's it. More than likely, you're not going to want to, renegotiate another contract with him. So, yeah. I would say that, okay, Will says second round pick in James Houston. Yeah, I just don't see where anyone's going to really want James. That doesn't really move the needle for me. I think that if you were to throw James Houston in, it's almost like, yeah, we're just going to give you a player because we need to make room on our roster. Does that make sense? I don't think that James Houston is going to move the needle for anybody. You know, like if they were saying, we'll give you a first round pick for Trey Hendrickson and we'll take in all of his contract and, you know, they're all good with that and the trade's about to go down and then the Lions say, oh, we're going to throw in James Houston too. That could ruin the deal, I guess is what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to say anything negative against James. It's purely what is he worth right now because he hasn't done anything since his rookie year and he went through a major injury. So that's all I'm going with. That's just my opinion. I just don't see where he's worth a ton right now. But that doesn't mean that, you know, the Bengals wouldn't want to bring in a player because they're losing a player. So you guys know that I love James Houston. Like I think that he just needed more time. And I still think that he just needs more time. He's coming back from a gruesome injury. We're only into week 8 and he hasn't played a whole lot. So I would say that he just needs an opportunity. Like this is the weekend for me. Against the Titans, this is the game that I want to see James Houston have a good game. And if he doesn't, then I think the writing is on the wall. But if he goes in and completely terrorizes the Titans and has a good game, then yeah, I think we got to hold on to him. I really do. Because we again, like I said earlier, we don't have another option later than couch guys. And I don't think that there's a whole lot of couch guys just chomping at the bit that can really help us, you know? Yeah, I'd say the window's now. Our window's wide open right now. But I would also say that it doesn't mean that we have to go and, you know, shove duffel bags of cash through it in draft picks to ruin our future. So Trey Hendrickson, I'm not opposed to Trey Hendrickson. I think it's going to require some finagling. It's a better option than Maxx Crosby's contract for sure. So I would definitely be, you know, open to Trey Hendrickson. But I think that the real player that the Lions are looking at is Zadarius Smith. That's the one that I'm expecting the deal to get done with. You've got 3 teams interested in Smith right now. So the Lions are going to be up against it. You know, if they're trying to bring him in, they're going up against the Ravens and the Commanders. Now, I would say on the surface level, this is going to be a race between the Ravens and the Lions. So who's going to offer more and what, you know, what does Zadarius Smith want to do? Does he want to play for the Ravens? I mean, I would say that the Ravens are probably a more, you know, sexier option, if you will. Just because they've been perennial winners. I mean, they seem to always be in the playoffs. They've got a pretty good cast of characters over there. Yeah, Brent, I don't know that I could say that Houston doesn't have the bend. And I apologize. Last night we were supposed to do a tape review. I rescheduled it for tonight. I'm still planning on doing that tonight. I should have everything wrapped up before that. We'll take a look. We'll take a look tonight and we'll see, you know, just how much bend he does have. I mean, he's fully healed. So I can't imagine that the ankle is going to prevent him, you know, from bending a whole lot. He's just got to have the confidence in it. Yeah, Peter, that's what I reported earlier today. I mean, what did I say? I hate to say that I told you so, but, you know, and I'm not saying you, Peter, but I told you so. Like, unless it's all fluff, you know, unless it's just all fluff and fodder and he's just trying to put out fires in the locker room. I never saw Crosby coming to Detroit. All I saw was a bunch of clickbait. People just want your clicks. That's it. I'm not going to try to do that here. I don't do this for money. I do this for the love of the game. The love of my Lions, man. And try to be that bridge between, you know, the fan and the team and try to bring you guys a little bit closer. So, NFL trade deadline rumor, Browns Zadarius Smith has 3 teams interested, including an AFC North foe. Now, I'm not sure that the Browns would be willing to do that, but then again, do they really care? I don't know. And then there's Conklin. I guess Conklin has some sort of an injury in week 7. So they were saying that it was going to be between Smith and Conklin, but Conklin's injury history and an undisclosed injury in week 7 that had him leave the game, that the more realistic approach now is going to be Zadarius Smith for a lot of these teams. I really don't know why they're putting those two in the same light, you know? An offensive versus a defensive player. Let's take a look at Zadarius Smith's contract. Now, this one's much more attractive, right? He's got a lot of baggage, though, in void years. But he, too, like Trey Hendrickson, is signed through 2025. Again, all of this prorated option stuff, that's going to hit the cap. That's going to hit, the Browns cap. It's not going to hit the Lions cap. But what I see is you're talking maybe 16, 17 million for the rest of 24 and all of 25. That is a very attractive cap number. Very attractive. He does have, some guaranteed money. Which is about only 1.2 million this year, 0 next year. So it's a very attractive contract the way that this has been put together. But he has some void years that only has another 15.8 million in cap in 2026. So I'm not a cap specialist, but I guess the way that I'm reading this, if the Lions are to bring in Zadarius Smith, I think that they would be all in at right around 18 million max. That would be the max. It would be about 18 million between this year and next year, and then prorated for 2024. It wouldn't be much of a difference. Maybe 17.5 million. So I think that's a really good contract. He's 32. He's got prototypical size. He's 6'6". 263. So he's, right in that Marcus Davenport, big end. But as far as his speed, I don't really know what he possesses right now. But what I will say, coming out of college, he was a 4.83 40 and a 1.74 10-yard split. So not the greatest of numbers. He had a terrible production score. He had a terrible athleticism score. And I think that's something to learn, right? Is, even though these guys coming out of college may not score the best, look what he's done in the NFL. So these stats don't always mean what he's going to transition to, what that player is going to transition to in the NFL. So that's why you can't believe everything that you read or everything that you see on paper. You got to go watch them. You got to watch how they work. And if you find those, those little differences, those slight differences between what the paper's saying and what the eyes are telling you, you could find some big time hidden talent there. Clearly he was one. He was one. So Zadarius Smith, 6 foot. Well, this says he's 6'4.5" at the combine, 274 pounds at the combine, 32 and 5/8 inch arms with 10-inch hands. So he's right on the border of having a perfect arm length too. I like the option. He was a round 4 pick, pick 23 in round 4 by the Ravens in 2015. If we go back and look at his overview, effort-oriented power with the willingness to battle and fight at the point of attack. He's not big enough to play end in a 3-4, So he'll have to become an above average run thumper as a 4-3 power end. That's interesting. That's really interesting that they said that. His strengths were linear build with a well-defined upper body, plays like his hair is on fire, and is more than happy to mix it up with the tackles in the trenches. Strong at the point of attack, can sack and shed blockers using arm extension and the power in his hands. He will do the dirty work for a defense and is considered a good team first player. Yeah, I'd say, Myles Garrett would be a great prize, but way too expensive, guys. Way too expensive. Yeah, Count Dooku. DeAndre Hopkins was traded this morning. So that means the Lions have an easier matchup a little bit this weekend. But I still like their defense over there. They do some good things over in Tennessee. We'll talk about that all on Friday. Chef, like I said, he's gonna fill in tomorrow. I've got to go to Cleveland tomorrow, so he'll be here in the morning. It'll probably start at 7:30. If it doesn't, it'll start at 8. But it's only going to go till about 9. So at least get an hour, see what he's got to say about the matchup for Tennessee and the Lions. Yeah, so Peter, I doubt it. I think that when you bring that contract in, it's going to be as is. I mean, that would benefit the team, but it wouldn't benefit the player. And I mean, I would love to think that, a player would do that, but I wouldn't hold my breath on it. As far as doing a renegotiation of the contract, I wouldn't hold my breath. It already has a bunch of void years in it already. And so that's the thing, is like how much more can you really finagle it, because it has a bunch of void years on the back end. So I think it's already maxed out, if that makes sense. Will Akers, I haven't heard on anything if JMO's going to appeal. He would have needed to have done that yesterday. Because I believe his suspension went into effect at 4:30. The only thing that we heard, which is a rumor that not verified, haven't seen any other reports, is that it was for a legal substance accompanied, by a doctor's note, right? A prescription substance that was not, the process was not followed through, that paperwork wasn't turned in. Now that's an alleged rumor. Have not substantiated it, but that was the rumor, that he was on a prescription medication that he did not turn the paperwork in for, and for that reason, he was suspended. Yeah, I'm with you, Peter. Yeah, the Browns are in deep trouble, man. I just really don't feel like they're going to be able to do anything. Oh, Casey, I wish I could enjoy Cleveland, man. It's all doctor stuff. It's all it is for me. I got to go get poked and prodded and scanned and God knows what else. Long day tomorrow. So let's look around some NFL news. Is there anybody else you guys really want to talk about? Because I mean, outside of Zadarius Smith, I really don't see another option that if you're looking for somebody that can come into this defense and have an impact, right? It doesn't make sense to just trade for low impact unless that you're trying to fill out the, the bottom end of your roster for depth, which they did, day one, I guess you would call it, after Aiden Hutchinson went down. They brought in Isaiah Thomas. Now, Dan Campbell has said very clearly that they expect Isaiah Thomas to get an option, to get, some snaps. They just got to get him up, get him in the defense. And as soon as he, they feel like he's able to go, they're going to try to get him some snaps. They have high confidence in him. They both watched him, coming up through the ranks, and they feel like this is a player that can help. And I would tell you this too. Here, let me pull up Isaiah Thomas, and we'll do a tape breakdown of him tonight too. I think I'm going to find as much tape as I can. So when you look at his stats, I mean, there's just not much there, right? Because he just hasn't done enough. He hasn't done anything, really. His lone year, really, that he had, some playing time, 2022, played in 10 games. He had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery. I mean, so nothing doing, really, just nothing. 2023 didn't do anything. 2024 hasn't done anything. So he's a really raw player. He's very, very raw. But he's also 6'5" and 270. And he was a 7th round pick. So, you would think there's not a whole lot there. But, you look at some of these other players, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks that end up becoming diamonds in the league. They just do. I'm not saying that he's going to be one of those, but with the right coaching, the right technique, the right defense, and the right attitude, anything can happen to anybody. I just said that the other day in my interview that, hard work can get you anywhere in life. So he's 6'5", 266 pounds, according to his combine. And he's got 33 1/4 inch arms and 10 1/4 inch hands. He is the perfect, in my opinion, my assessment after I went and looked at 20 plus different defensive ends and combined all their measurements. He is the perfect specimen of a defensive end. So if you've got the perfect measurements, now you need to ingrain the system inside him. What does he have that you can pull out? What can you make work that maybe other coaches haven't been able to find yet? You got to pull the best out of this kid and be able to put it to use. So he's got the perfect opportunity. He's in the right place. He's not, extremely slow. He runs a 4.7, a 1.66 split. I would love to see that, 1.6 or below, but good vertical, good broad, which tells me he's got some short, lateral area quickness. I think that the, opportunity for him to have an impact on this game from at least a perspective of being able to contain, not going in and completely blowing the game. Yeah, I think he's got that ability. I think that, I think the ceiling is very high here. There's a lot of opportunity for this guy. But I'm not expecting, for him to just jump out the gym, jump off the page, whatever you want to call it, week 1, day 1, and just be a game wrecker. No, he's very far from that. But I'm not going to doubt his ability. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to doubt his ability. I think that Terrell Williams will find what he needs to find and then extract that out of him and put him to work. So we'll see what happens. He's definitely got a much better size than Houston does. I think Houston just has, he's a little bit more refined. So we'll see how long it takes, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't hold your breath on Isaiah Thomas, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a couple of good games. So that's really it for the defensive end. One more update here. Maxx Crosby stated very clearly last night he wants to remain a Raider. He has no interest in joining any other team. He's trying to put all of these rumors to bed. But he is silver and black for life is what he said. He doesn't want to play anywhere else. And then Davis, the owner of the Raiders, also said the same thing. These are just rumors. They are not substantiated. There's nothing to them. There is no interest in trading Maxx Crosby at this point. And that's why I said, when I watched the interview yesterday of Maxx Crosby where he's sitting there and he's saying, I'm here to win. I'm not here for the rebuild. I'm here to win, whatever he said. That's why I said, look, that doesn't mean that he's trying to leave. What he's telling you is that wherever his feet are, he wants to win. And he wants to win now. He's going to go put his best foot forward. He's going to put his best work on the table, and he's going to go try and win every rep that he can to help his team win. I don't think that he was trying to say, or convey at least, that he doesn't want to be with this team during a rebuild. He just wants to win now. That's all he's saying. And I think now we've heard it from the horse's mouth, from Maxx Crosby himself. That slim to none that he's going to be coming to Detroit. Slim to none. So I apologize for pissing in your Cheerios this morning if you wanted Maxx Crosby, but I've stood firm on this from the first time I reported on it, that I never thought that it was going to happen. It just didn't make sense. And financially, it just didn't make sense for the Lions. And financially, Myles Garrett doesn't make sense. But, man, would he be an awesome player. Trey Hendrickson makes a little bit more sense, but Zadarius Smith, I believe, makes the most sense from a financial standpoint and for a player that has the ability to step on the field and help this team win some ball games. NFL news, we found out this morning that DeAndre Hopkins is now being traded to the Chiefs. So the Lions will have a little bit of an easier matchup headed into the weekend, but do not think that this is just going to be a pushover of a game. I apologize. Someone wanted me to talk about Josh Uche. Let me just dip into him real quick. I'll find his contract here. So he's a 1-year rental. He's 26 years old. So I'm just going to go ahead and guess that he's on the last year of his rookie contract. He was drafted in 2020. And it looks like he signed a 1-year extension is what it looks like. He was an unrestricted free agent in 2024. I guess I'm not understanding this. 2020, 21, 22, 23. So he played 4 years. He must have signed a 1-year extension or a 1-year deal to be with the Patriots. So the Patriots obviously did not heavily invest into him for whatever reason. When you look at his stats over the last 4 or 5 seasons, he's had an average of 3 TFLs a year. He's played an average of about 12 games a season, maybe 13 games a season. Sacks, he had 1 good season. 2022, he had 11.5. Other than that, he's averaging about 2.5 sacks per season, maybe 3. Play special teams. And he's been averaging about 30%, maybe 25, 30% of defensive snaps. So he's not really getting a ton of playing time, and he's oft injured. According to the stats right here, he's been injured in every single season except for this year, and he was injured twice last season. So oft injured, only a rotational player at best. And he should be I think the Patriots run a 3-4 defense, right? They do. They run a 3-4. So he's an outside linebacker. So if you're looking for an outside linebacker replacement or depth behind Derek Barnes, I think that would probably be the play, but he's definitely not an end. He's not a pass rusher. He's 6'1", 240, so he's the same exact size as James Houston. He's not lighting up the board for me. But I would say for somebody that maybe can help the Lions as far as depth, yeah, I think that there's an opportunity there. He's cheap. He's a 1-year rental, so, it would be a depth move. And there's the potential that, hey, maybe the Lions extend him a little bit and then try to see what they can extract out of him. But for a young guy that, doesn't have a big contract hit, that's not going to really screw up the Lions, cap per se, why not? Why not see what you can get out of him? The only thing that I would warn against is his size. 6'1", 240 does not excite me. No, on the other side of that though, guys like Jack Campbell just don't come around very often either for middle linebackers. But I typically would like to see an outside linebacker be in that 6'3", range. Definitely has to have 33-inch arms, or at least as long as arms as you can find, really. You want to be able to reach up and swat that ball away, or, jump up behind the line and swat the ball away. Have to have hands to be able to make plays on the ball. And he has that. So he's got 33 and 5/8 inch arms. He's got 9.5-inch hands, 6'1", 245, according to the combine. He was graded out as a potential starter and picked up in round 2, picked 28 in round 2. His overall score was a 70 at the combine, but he didn't do anything. He didn't do any 40, 10-yard, vertical, broad jump. So that scares me a little bit. Why didn't you do any work? Were you injured? I don't know. I don't have time to go look and see if he was injured, ahead of the combine. But he did do the bench press where he put up 18 reps. I don't know. It's a gamble. It's not a Trey Flowers gamble, but it's a gamble. And I would say for a depth, yeah, I like it. I think that there's some option here. Trevor Nowaski, he's been playing great, man. Absolutely been playing wonderful. I mean, so again, guys, look, and ladies, that is a perfect example, right? Trevor Nowaski. This is why I trust Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Exactly why. This is a guy that last season, what week were we in? Like 12? And all of a sudden, this guy, Trevor Nowaski, gets added to the 53-man roster. I was like, head scratching. Like, well, what are we doing here? Who is this guy? Why is he getting added to the roster? Well, come to find out, Dan Campbell's saying, hey, this is a guy we don't want to lose. We really like this dude. So we had to bring him up. We had to put him on the roster because someone was trying to poach him. And that someone was the Cardinals. So at any rate, Lions bring him up, and then injuries happen. Of course, football happens, right? They had to put him back down into the practice squad, and bang, he was poached right away. And he's gone. And then the Lions had an opportunity to bring him back. Real quick on Betts. Yeah, Betts is done. We can't get him until after their season is over in Canada. Which is after the NFL season, I believe. I believe. Could be wrong there. Anyway, so on Nowaski, Lions get an opportunity to bring him back this spring, and they do. And for that reason, I was like, wow, how lucky can you be that you actually got this guy back? And then he gets in the game this year. And he's starting to play, well beyond what anybody would have ever expected. Now, he was one of the highest grade. Here, let me get into PFF, because he was one of the higher graded linebackers last week for the Lions. One of the higher graded players on the team. Let's see here. Trevor Nowaski right here. This might be the entire season grade. Is it really? It is. He is the 4th highest graded player on the team currently. 3 games, 51 snaps total. So not a whole lot of snaps. He's been involved in 13 run defense and 31 pass rush and 7 coverage snaps. He's graded out as an 83.5 overall. Against the run, 73.3. Tackling, 77.5. So he's a very good tackler. Pass rush, 70.4. Coverage, this is great, 76.4. That is why I trust Brad Holmes. A UDFA is now our 4th highest graded player on the team. Now, granted, it's a small sample size, so we do have to see some more snaps out of the guy and see where that balance carries, right? You know, is it going to continue to the same trend, or is it, you know, going to go up or down? Hopefully it continues to stay, you know, where it is or only get better. But I mean, that's a phenomenal grade. A UDFA in his 2nd season playing that well. And his RAS score, by the way, was like a 997 or 995. Jack Campbell's was a 999. So if that tells you anything, we got 2 extremely smart football players, right, that are playing next to each other in that linebacker room, and they're only going to get better the longer that they play together. So big time move here. I would dare say that next year, Trevor Nowatzki is going to be the starter over Barnes. I would expect it at this point. I think that he's going to be a much better player. And I don't even know what Barnes' contract is. I don't know how long he's going to be around, but you know, Derek had a late bloom, and you know, it may be too late, especially after this injury, which you hate to see. Yeah, I think this was his last season. He's only signed through this year. So it'll be interesting to see what Brad Holmes does. Is he going to say, you know what? Yeah, Derek will bring you back on, you know, a cheap contract for the next year, or, you know, maybe gives him a couple year extension. But, you know, Derek's pretty young too. He's only, let's see, Barnes is, where is it? Was he 26 maybe? It's not showing me. I would guess that he's probably 26, 25, somewhere in that range. But I do love Trevor Nowatzki, man. What a great pickup. What a great pickup. All right, before I went left there, what were we talking about? NFL news. We were talking about DeAndre Hopkins. Let's talk a little bit about the Titans for a moment. See, I said it was going to be a short show, and we're already pushing 90 minutes. Let's do a quick ad break. We'll be right back.
The season is here, and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to sportspider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your number one source for all your sports. Visit sportspider.com today, right after the show.
Okay. So I know that some of you are not happy with the way Brad Holmes does his business. Doug Michael Ruzine says that Brad's in the DE store. He's walking all the aisles. And then Bill Rowland says he's in the back at the discount rack. Come on, you guys got to love Brad Holmes, man. I mean, can you honestly say that he's put us in a bad situation yet? I don't think so. And I understand that, you know, you want to have this highfalutin player added to the team. But, and I know it's hard, right? I mean, we want to win so badly. But sometimes things just happen for a reason, right? And I think that this season is no different. We have faced a ton of issues with injuries and everything else. We've had to be extremely resilient as a fan base and as a team. You know, the Lions have had to be extremely resilient, bouncing back every week from, you know, multiple injuries in every game. You know, a new player going down every other, every other week for the long term, where multiple guys going out and, against the Cardinals, Davenport, Barnes. It is what it is. There's only so many NFL players, and there's only so many that can help your team win, and there's only so many that you can afford. So for all those reasons and more, I think that Brad Holmes is doing everything right. I'm not going to let somebody influence me and, pound their chest and beat their drum and, call Brad Holmes the dollar store general or the discount, whatever, discount GM. I mean, I understand it. He brings in these guys that don't cost a lot of money or have injury history. I understand it. I get it. But you can't tell me that we've had a better GM ever in your lifetime in Detroit. You can't tell me that you've had a better team in your lifetime unless you were around back in the the late 50s or the early 50s than right now. You can't tell me. And that doesn't happen by mistake. That happens because your GM is as good as they get. You just have to blindly trust him. But I don't know if it's really blindly anymore. I think that he's earned it. I think he's earned all of our trust and patience. Dan Campbell he said that word quite a bit and emphatically, emphasized that word in the post-game locker room, patience. Lions fans, we don't have any patience. We don't, because we've been waiting for so long. For me, I had to learn how to be a little bit patient again. I had to learn, some of that emotional EQ again, because my dad could tell you this. I mean, every single season it was, you always hear the Lions are going to, be this type of team. And, that player that we just drafted, that's the player. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm not going to get all excited just to have my heart ripped out again. And I don't know who the hell that player is. And this wasn't during the Brad, Holmes and Dan Campbell era. This is before, the Quinn Trisha era. I had no clue who some of these players were. The Frank Ragnow's, yeah, I was good on that. There's a couple other players that we brought in that I was good on, but the large majority of players that they brought into the team, I was like, what are we doing? So yeah, the doom and gloom was there. I was never an SOL type of guy, but I had my reserves about where this team was going to end up. And you know what? It ended up exactly where I thought it would. In a complete dumpster fire, with Sheila having to completely rebuild everything. I mean, she essentially rebranded the entire team. So I'm glad that it's going in the direction it's going in now. I would hate for any moment in time, I would hate to go back to where we were. And I think that if we chirp at Brad too much and he gets too much pressure and he cracks under pressure, which I don't think Brad will, and he goes out and makes a rash purchase, it could really screw us up. Especially if that player comes in. What happens if that player gets injured? Then what? Are you going to say we have to go get another one? It's just not likely. It's not likely. And those types of things just don't happen for every team. Go back and look at the trade deadline. That's another thing that I wanted to point out. I'm never going to get to the Titans today. Shout out to DLR Van Halen, says, has Brad Holmes been keeping a lower profile this season? Yeah. I haven't seen him going wild on the sidelines or the locker room this season. Yeah, I think that some of that is, and I would agree, and thank you for the super chat this morning, Van Halen. I appreciate your support of the channel. I would say that he's been a little bit lower profile, but I don't know if it's by purpose or if it's just maybe they're trying to not put those videos up. I think that the Lions, they have full autonomy of what they're going to put up. And maybe they're trying to move away from him because he's so outwardly expressive. He's been getting called cocky and arrogant by other GMs. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. Let's get you the win, DLR. Let's get you the win that changed everything for Lions fans.
For the second time since 1957, for the first time since January 5th, 1992, these Detroit Lions are going to win a playoff game.
See, that's where I want to be. I want to be winning playoff games. And I don't think that happens with us spending lavishly every single season for bringing in these high-priced free agents. I don't think it happens. All right, so in 2023, there were 15 moves total out of 32 teams. There were 15 moves total at the trade deadline. So where I was going, what I was going to say is there's not a ton of movement. There's just not a ton of players moved every single year. It is very slim to none. In 2022, there was 13. And where's 2021? Am I only seeing 3? Might have only been 3 moves in 2021. Let me look at this article real quick and see what it says. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so it looks like there was 6. Looks like there might have been 6 in 2021. So 6, 13, and 15 over the last 3 years. So you're averaging what? 10? About 10 per season? That's not a whole lot of moves. Orner U of M Dad says, if your tire pops, it goes flat, you replace it. Why would your roster be different? Okay. All right. I'll take that analogy and I'll raise you one. Because Tire Rack, Walmart, Discount Tire, Bell Tire, there's a lot of open trade options. And they have a shit ton of tires in stock. That's why. Now in the NFL, like I just said, 13, 15, and 6 players moved at the trade deadline on 32 teams. That is less than 1/3 of a player being moved per team at the trade deadline. It just doesn't happen. If all of these teams, which, I mean, every single team in the NFL has suffered major injuries this year. I would say that there's no less than 6 IR players on every team, with some having as many as 12 or 13 players on IR right now. So how many, teams would you expect that are going to go out the trade deadline and make a move? Because there hasn't really been any trades since the season started. There hasn't been a whole lot going on. So would you expect 32 trades at least to happen, at the trade deadline? The answer is no. It just doesn't happen. There's not enough players. So maybe if the NFL would do everybody a solid and raise the minimum number of players that you can have on your roster and raise the minimum number of players that you can have on your practice squad and give you an opportunity to protect a couple of more players, we wouldn't have this problem. I mean, would it really hurt the NFL to go to 18 games? Go ahead and do it. But you better raise the roster limit from 53 to 60. And with the practice squad, bump it out to 75 players overall. Pay the top 55, whatever it works out to be. So go ahead and do that. But then you're able to have more players on your roster. So when you suffer all these injuries, you still have a well to go and dip into and pull up a bucket full of, all right, we're going to put you in this week. We're going to put you in next week. We're going to see who plays better. The well is dry. That's the problem. There's just not enough players in the NFL. There's not enough players on these practice squads. Because if there was really, good top tier players, you got to remember too that on the practice squads, you can't have more than, is it 4 or 6 guys with more than 3 years of collective experience? Everyone else is pretty much a rookie or has 2 years of experience. You're only allowed 4 or 6 guys out of 16 that can have as much experience as they want. So you just got a bunch of young cats, which is, the NFL trying to keep, payroll low. That's all they're trying to do. So yeah. Hopefully I answered your statement, ornery U of M dad, in a way that made sense. I don't know. I wish that, there was more players available for the Lions to be able to pick up and more options available, but there's just not. There really isn't. And the guys that we, every single one of us wants. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't want to see Maxx Crosby in the Honolulu Blue. I would love to see it. I would love to see Myles Garrett. Matter of fact, they did a video last year. There was some trade rumors going around last season. A lot between Washington and the Lions and Myles Garrett and the Lions. Never came to fruition. And we're in the same boat again this season. A bunch of rumors. Bunch of clickbait, no substance. And so I learned my lesson last year, did a little bit more, deeper thinking, a little bit more deeper research, reaching out to more teams, trying to get statements, trying to get information before I go ahead and make a video. I'm not just going to pump it, and kind of look like a fool when I'm saying that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. I don't want to look that way. So for me, I want to bring the truth back to all of us. And the truth is, according to Maxx Crosby, he wants to stay home where he is. Myles Garrett's going to be too expensive. Hendrickson makes some sense because of the contract. And Zadarius Smith probably makes the most sense. And Brad Holmes is probably going to do absolutely nothing with all of those players and do something totally different. That's just the way he is. All right, so let's do this here. Let's get into a brief conversation here on the Titans. And then I will follow up more on Friday. We'll do a full show on the Titans and the Lions breakdown. And then, of course, tomorrow, Chef is going to be filling in. He'll probably be doing some stuff on the Titans and Lions matchup. And tonight, we'll do the tape review. And then we've got a pop-up live that is going to have to happen. I keep reminding everybody, it's got to happen. I got to get it done this week. Matter of fact, we're probably going to have to get 2 of them done. All right, so Maxx Crosby spoke up. We spoke about that, but let's talk about the Lions and Titans. This week is a Week 8 matchup that really pits a team that is, off and running, the Lions, 5-1, against a team that, well, they kind of stalled out at the beginning. They're 1-5 now, I think the Titans are. And they just traded away their best receiver. Just a matter of an hour and a half ago. The Lions are clearly, riding high. You just went in and thumped the Cowboys. Best win I've seen in many years. And then you back that up with pulling out an epic win versus the Vikings. Oh, let's see what we got going on here. Negative. No trades. So they completely tore apart the Vikings, in my opinion. They let them come back in. We had some issues in that game with, the fumble that went back for the touchdown. That score was much closer than what I would say the actual game portrayed. If you go back and watch the game, which we will tonight, the game was not that close. The Lions defense really played well. And that was my big challenge to everybody that was watching the show last week was, hey, evaluate this defense this weekend. It's the first defense without Aiden Hutchinson. How is Aaron Glenn going to be able to find himself when he doesn't have, the one player that he feels probably is a good constant for him, which is Aiden Hutchinson. And now that he had to worry about that player being gone, what is he going to do in his absence? Is he really going to start to mix it up and call a different deal? And he did. Aaron Glenn did a really good job at trying to disguise what they wanted to do, and then also throwing a bunch of different, fits at the Minnesota Vikings, which I believe got Sam Darnold off of his mark pretty quickly. Offensive strengths, obviously for the Lions, explosive passing attack. Yes, we're going to be without Jameson Williams, but we didn't have him last week, versus the Vikings. He was not involved in the game. And I feel so much more confident now that we have a Tim Patrick and an Allen Robinson, who has been brought up once already. I don't remember if he was brought up last week, but, we'll have him for this week too. So we have options. You saw Khalif Raymond put on a clinic last week. When his number was called, he went to work. Amon-Ra St. Brown did not slow down. The only one that really slowed down was Sam Laporta. So the Lions still have to get him up and going. But this is a defense where I believe the explosive passing attack is going to come alive. The Lions boast the NFL's second-ranked total offense, 411.8 yards per game. And the second-ranked scoring offense, 30.3 points per game. 30.3 points per game. And quarterback Jared Goff is playing at what they said, the Pro Bowl level the other day. No. He's playing at an all-pro level right now. He's playing at MVP level right now. Forget the Pro Bowl. Put this man up on an all-pro elite level. And if he continues the way that he's playing, there's no reason why he shouldn't get an opportunity this season. Very effective at distributing the ball. I mean, Jared Goff has proven time and time and time again, just like I have tried to time and time and time again, to all of those haters that come into my show and talk all of this trash about Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a bridge. Jared Goff is no good. We need Hendon Hooker to start. And I kept telling everybody, ain't going to happen. That would be the worst mistake ever. Jared Goff is going to prove you wrong again. You know what? Those people don't show up anymore. They didn't like to be wrong. I wasn't trying to, have anything personal between us. I just saw what I saw. And what I saw was that Jared Goff is an elite quarterback. And as long as he gets a little bit of time to throw the ball, he's going to be just fine. But in actuality, Jared Goff hasn't had any time to throw the ball. He just went 10 for 11 or 10 for 12, like 164 yards and 2 touchdowns with less than 2.47 seconds of time to throw. The most pressure he faced all season, he had his best game. Jared Goff currently ranks, I think, 7th in overall offensive performances on the season. I think that's what PFF had him. The Lions have, really good offensive line. We know this. Now, Iwasaka got in early, last week as a starter and had trouble. I mean, he got in and had trouble early as a starter in place of Kevin Zeitler. I'm hoping that Kevin Zeitler is going to be good to go this week. Iwasaka just, not a good performance from him to start the game. Now, later on through the game, I felt like he was doing okay. Let's go back and look. Oh, what's going on? PFF is being dumb. Let's try that again. All right, let's go back and look at offensive rankings. So Frank Ragnow versus the Vikings had a 90.1. And Coyote Iwasaka Wow, he had a better grade than Graham Glasgow? That's scary. He had a 45.6, 43.2 in pass block, and a 54.2 in run block. Graham Glasgow had a 43.9 overall, 81.8 in pass block, and a 34.7 in run block. Our guards had a problem last week. So that has to stiffen up. Taylor Decker had his worst performance of the year. He was also 44.6. So we had 3 offensive players, from left to right, Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, and then Coyote Iwasaka, that all played terribly. But because we have players like Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow, they were able to stand firm and to continue to, pound the ball when needed. Yeah, they've got to get that fixed. We can't have that against a team like the Titans. That does present some. They do present some opportunities to the Lions, but they also present some headaches. Offensive line needs to improve. We can't just have 1 or 2 guys playing well. Goff didn't have any time. We've got to figure out a way to get him more time. See, I'm more worried about keeping the offense together than I am what the defense is doing right now, because the defense is playing at a high enough level with the guys that we have now. We just went up against one of the most potent offensive attacks in the NFL, and we were able to keep everybody at bay. And, Dan did say that, they asked the DBs to, clearly do more, right? They had to stick a little bit more. And it was evident that they asked them to do more. But it worked. Lions also have a fairly balanced attack. I mean, it is almost split right down the middle. While the passing game is our strength, our running game is also a strength. The Lions have shown the ability to run the ball very effectively. Whether it's David Montgomery, which last week he didn't have his best game, or Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jahmyr Gibbs had his best game, I believe, of the season so far, and potentially one of his best games yet as a Detroit Lion. Our consistency in the red zone. The Lions move the ball very well between the 20s. And our red zone efficiency last week. Let's see if I can find it. All right, so red zone scoring percentage, which would be a TD only. The Lions last week, we were 100% in the red zone. 81.82% the last 3, but only 58.33% on the season. Good enough for 12th place in the league right now. So that we do need some work here. I do feel like if the Lions are going to try to compete for a Super Bowl, the Minnesota Vikings were the 6th ranked. I don't know why. So the last game for some reason did not get ranked. I can't imagine that they didn't have any red zone opportunities, but they've been averaging, 62.5% at home, 68.75% overall. And they're good enough for 6th place. And I would love to know what they were ranked last week, because I feel like the Lions did a really good job, at holding them back. They were taking field goals, I didn't notice Colby Sorsdahl in the game last week. He maybe came in to give somebody a breath. I'm not impressed with Colby. I think that's another move, the Lions probably need is, to bring in another guard. We need a better tackle backup too. I mean, we have Skip, but I'm not saying that I want to see Skip take over for Penei or Taylor Decker. I think that would be a potential issue. Defensive weakness right now. Would you say that our pass rush is a weakness? When I look at the scores from last week, You know, again, just taking this on the surface. It's not a deep dive today. When I look at the scores from last week, the Lions produced 15 pressures. Out of 15 pressures, the Lions produced 4 sacks. That's pretty effective, in my opinion. I don't know how many total plays. Looks like there was 60 total offensive plays for the Minnesota Vikings. So that meant on at least 25% of plays, the Lions were getting pressure. I think that's pretty good. Broderick Martin, he's just on his way back, man. He's just got to get his ticket opened up, his window opened up. But you know how the Lions do. They probably won't utilize the full 3 weeks. They'll bring him up, and then he'll be ready to go pretty quickly, is my guess. So where was I going with this? Pass rush, is it a weakness? I mean, technically you could say that it is, but, you know, saying that, sacks are everything, I think that, for someone to say that is not looking at the overall bigger picture. The bigger picture is, are we winning the game? Are we losing the game? I'll do a deep dive maybe on Friday into, so the teams that, win Super Bowls, is it because they have better pass rush? Is it because they have the most sacks? And where are the sacks coming from? I think that there's something to be said there. It's not that sacks are going to win you every single game, because they're not. We saw it. Look how many sacks we had against Tampa. And we still could have win the game. So clearly sacks are not everything. Big plays allowed. So is our secondary susceptible? Yeah, it can be. It absolutely can be. But I think that they're playing better and better and better and better every week that passes by. I think that we have developed a very strong core right now with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold, and Amik Robertson. I think that this is probably the best core of DBs that we have seen in Detroit in a very long time. And they're playing at such a high level. I'm trying to get some defensive stats here. Okay. Oh, that's not what I wanted. I'll have to do the research tonight. But I did want to throw this at you. Pressure rate for last week for Jared Goff. First, we'll start with time to throw. Oh, this is on the regular season. So for the entire season, Jared Goff is 19th. So he's the 19th rated quarterback. And that's not an indictment on him. He's got averaged 2.75 seconds of time to throw. Now, first is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold had 3.11 seconds of time to throw on average for the season. Brock Purdy, 3.10. Jalen Hurts, 3.08. Justin Fields at 3.04. And on goes down the list. So Jared Goff clearly is not what people think he is, that he can't throw under pressure. He just proved everybody wrong again. Now in week 7, we'll do the same exercise here. Time to throw. Sam Darnold, 2.96 seconds, was the 10th rated quarterback of the week. So with a defense where Sam Darnold was the number 1 overall quarterback in the league with time to throw, meaning he had the most time to throw this whole season, against the Lions, it dropped them all the way down to 10th, which means that we are getting pressure on him. Week 6, let's see where Sam Darnold was there, or they had a bye. Week 5. Sam Darnold in week 5 had 3.37 seconds of time to throw. Number 1 quarterback in the league. So the Lions got to be doing something right. I mean, he had 3.37. He was dropped almost a whole half of a second against the Lions. Week 4, Sam Darnold had 3.21 seconds of time to throw. Week 3, Sam Darnold had, unbelievable, 3.31 seconds. Good enough for second place both of those weeks, weeks 3 and 4. Week 2. Week 2, Sam Darnold was 18th with 2.82 seconds of time to throw. So that was probably his best week of the year. It was week 2. I don't even know who they played in week 2. And then week 1, Sam Darnold, go figure, a top 10 quarterback, 2.91 seconds, good enough for 8th in the league. So what is the point that I'm trying to make here? For a defense that everyone was so worried about getting pressure, getting sacks, and being successful against good quarterbacks that have a lot of time to throw, good bookends, tackles, both of them really good. The Lions turned out the second worst game for Sam Darnold as far as time to throw of the season. Under 3 seconds of time to throw. Made him throw an interception. 4 sacks. I mean, I would be happy about that, everybody. I mean, I think that just settled a lot of nerves that says that we just, we're totally lost because we lost Aiden. That's not the case. We just went up against one of the best offenses in the league and proved that we can get it done with the guys that we have on the roster. Now, of course, I would still love to see, someone else added that can help, but yeah. Doug Michael Rosine says 8 safety interceptions this year. No quarterback interceptions. Yeah, so that's when you're playing man, I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to get interceptions when you're playing man, when you're man up. When you're playing zone, it's easier to get interceptions. And that's where you're seeing our safeties able to have more opportunity, is because they're for all intents and purposes, they're playing zone back there as a safety. So they're able to sneak up and get their hands on the ball. Yeah, Brent Lyden, you hit the nail on the head. Davis has never been a big interception guy. Our defense is designed to get safety interceptions in man. There you go. Yep, we play man with the corners, and we play zone with the safeties. A real question is, does anyone think we'll get an edge before the Green Bay game? I don't know. But again, Lions man, everything that I've been talking about today, it really points into the direction that we're doing fine. We're doing better than fine. We just took, like I said, Sam Darnold from having the most time to throw in the league this season. Well, he's ranked 7th or 2nd, He has the second most time to throw, first most time to throw in the league. My apology. 3.11 over the first 7 weeks of the season. And we dropped him all the way down to like 2.96 seconds. And that was good enough for 10th in the league over week 7. So we dropped him, almost a quarter of a second and still produced 4 sacks with no Aiden Hutchinson. Now, when I go and look at the sack producers for the week, the Saints' Spencer Rattler took 6 sacks. Not surprised. Daniel Jones from the Giants took 7 sacks. And that's it. So outside of that, the Lions were only one of three teams last week that had more than 4 sacks in a game. It's pretty solid. And we did it with, mixing up our coverage assignments and what the Lions are doing on the back end. Yeah. So if the price is wrong, Brad Holmes ain't doing it. So I expect that we'll see something happen, but it's probably not going to be the guy that you want. Again, going back to everything we talked about this morning, it's, I think it's very slim pickings for what type of player that Brad Holmes is going to bring in. That doesn't mean it's not going to help. Tennessee Titans, again, I'll get more into this on Friday. I'll do a full breakdown of the Lions and the Titans game. But that's going to be it for today. So tomorrow morning, I'll have Chef in covering. I'm not sure if he's going to be with somebody. It could start at 7:30, so just pay attention to the time. I'll get it posted tonight. I'll be in Cleveland tomorrow, and then I'll be back for a full game breakdown on Friday. And then tonight we will do our review of last week's game. So if you're a member and you want to watch, the game breakdown, will be tonight. I think it's scheduled for 8 p.m. And then pay attention. Might have a live pop-up today. Get that mini helmet delivered to somebody that deserves it, right? Someone's got to win. Van Halen, another $5 super chat, says, I heard some crazy stuff. Crazy stat that our wide receivers have drawn 0 pass interference calls this season. That's crazy if true. That is crazy if true. And I think that would make you beg the question, why? Is it because we're getting so much separation? Or is it because no one's trying to help out the Lions? Or, said another way, are the Lions not trying to force a pass interference call or a holding call? Because there's definite ways to go about doing so, right? Trap the arm, forces a holding call. The way you run your routes, you can body these guys up and you get them all tripped up and then the flag's going to fly. But I would say that our Lions probably would rather make the catch, get open, and, take care of business that way versus trying to get penalties. But yeah, I for some reason, Van Halen, I think that stat is spot on. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate your support. We'll end it today on JMOTD because we're not going to see him for the next couple weeks.
Jameson makes the catch. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, number 9.
All right, number 9, get your act together. We'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. I'll see you back Friday. The show goes on tomorrow between 7:30 and 8 a.m. It'll be on. Just double check, like I said. Make sure that you got your notifications on. Do us a favor, like and subscribe on your way out of the show today. It would really help out this channel to grow. Every 500 subscribers, we give away a signed mini helmet with certificate of authenticity, either from Penny Sewell or Chris Spielman. But we have a lot of them to give away this season. and we would like to get one in your hands. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. Have a good day.
In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rock on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. In the city, where the road meets the night, the Lions charge, ready for the fight. Noble hearts and steadfast pride. Detroit spirit, we wear it white. Feel the drive, hear the crowds embrace. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. Rocked on, Detroit Lions will rise. With a heart full of dreams and the fire in our eyes. From the past to the future, we'll claim our own. In the home of the brave, we'll proudly have grown. With every game, we rise and unite. Fueling the passion, igniting the light. Through highs and lows, we'll stand as one. Our legacy, a tale that's just begun. Together